accessibility settings, but you can do the little swipe down on the bottom of the screen to bring the top corners within reach, and that makes getting the top gestures easier with one hand. I leave that on, it's pretty useful sometimes. Now, of course, the other big change that comes with ditching the home button on iPhone X is you also just ditched that fingerprint reader, which means, as you may have heard, they needed to replace that with Face ID. Facial recognition. Face ID on the iPhone works really well most of the time. It's not perfect, and I think Touch ID was closer to perfect as far as fail rate goes, but it's still impressively good here. I talked about how Touch ID is like the gold standard for quickly and securely getting into your phone in the previous video. I'll link that below the like button, of course. And I still believe that. Touch ID is definitely still faster, but Face ID can get better with software updates, and with time, as millions of people begin to use it, I think that'll happen. And it still also has some physical limitations that you can become aware of and avoid, just like Touch ID had some physical limitations that you could become aware of, like when your finger's wet or it doesn't quite work because of stuff on your hands, or if you have a glove on, stuff like that you just know Touch ID is not going to work. Some physical limitations that you can become aware of and avoid, just like Touch ID had some physical limitations that you could become aware of, like when your finger's wet or it doesn't quite work because of stuff on your hands, or if you have a glove on, stuff like that you just know Touch ID is not going to work. Some physical limitations that you can become aware of and avoid, just like Touch ID had some physical limitations that you could become aware of, like when your finger's wet or it doesn't quite work because of stuff on your hands, or if you have a glove on, stuff like that you just know Touch ID is not going to work. Some physical limitations that you can become aware of. So you put in the passcode. Face ID has some physical limitations too. It works by bouncing thousands of little infrared dots off your face and back into the sensor and creating a map of your eyes, nose, and mouth. It doesn't actually use the front-facing camera, and it can learn a changing face over time. It still recognizes you when you get a haircut or shave a beard or put makeup on. None of this stuff has a huge effect on the dot map it made of your face. It also won't be tricked by a picture of you because that doesn't have the depth of your face. And I can also work through some pairs of sunglasses, again, the ones where the infrared light can get through. But Face ID has been known to fail when you're backlit or when there's like a ton of extra infrared light coming in, basically from the sun. It's like how a dim flashlight doesn't work when it's really bright out. Same thing, Face ID is gonna get blinded by all that extra infrared light. Just gotta type in your passcode. But those times for me were few and far between. If Touch ID's success rate was 99%, to me it felt like Face ID's success rate was like 95%. Now that can add up when you unlock your phone hundreds of times a day, but again, this can get better as it gets used more. There's even some settings as well where you can turn attention on, so it won't unlock if you're just holding the phone up to your face. Not only that, but you have to be looking at your phone. Then it'll unlock and show all your notification data. Works pretty well for me, just please don't do this while driving. And even if Face ID is this workaround to not getting the fingerprint reader underneath the glass in time for this phone, I still think that at its best, facial recognition on a phone is closer to secure, seamless authentication than a separate fingerprint reader ever would be. Because with this, you just pick up the phone and it works. You use it, you log in, you pay for stuff, you download apps, etc. But if someone else picks up your phone, it won't work. It's that simple. And then there is Animoji. Possibly, maybe the most fun feature of iPhone X. But you know what's hilarious? These moving facial tracking Animoji are iPhone X exclusive. You can't get this on any other iPhone. So if you get one of these, then you know the person that sent it has an iPhone X. And weirdly enough, if you send this to someone with an Android phone, they just get a video message of this Animoji. But here's the thing, Animoji is just using the front-facing camera. Check this out, Animoji is working and continues to work even when you cover the depth sensors and the extra front-facing sensors, all that stuff. It'll work when you cover everything except for the front-facing camera, which means they totally could have made these available for any other iPhone, but they didn't. Man, Animoji is the classic I have an iPhone and you don't feature. Classic Apple. iPhone X also has some slightly new cameras, same exact sensors for both cameras as the iPhone 8 Plus, but slightly better glass. And now both are optically stabilized, so this is going to get you some meaningfully better performance with the 2x telephoto lens and zoomed in photos and zoomed in videos, things like that, which is good to see because I avoided using it with previous iPhones. And as you'd expect, photos from the iPhone X look awesome. I'm especially happy with how much dynamic range we're getting. HDR on previous iPhone cameras used to be a lot less aggressive, and I kept asking over and over for a little more, and now photos really pop. The sky is like always so blue, detail is there, color accuracy is tight. It's not as good as the Pixel 2's camera, just gonna say that right up front, but this is a top 5 smartphone camera, no doubt. If you want a video sample, check out the Tesla wrap video. I'll link it below. That's 5 minutes of 4K video from the sensor right there if you want to watch that. And despite its tendency to overexpose, I think it might be the best front-facing camera for video for any smartphone. They've also added portrait mode to the front-facing camera for portrait selfies on the 10, but it doesn't work nearly as well. Edges get blurred super hard, almost to a comical amount when you compare it to something like the Pixel 2 or even the back-facing camera. But the thing is, Pixel 2 does all this so much better because of machine learning and software. So in theory, iPhone 10 can keep learning and get this good too. Plus it already has better color accuracy, so I'll be on the lookout for that software update. Now you may have noticed we've made it all this way into an iPhone review without talking about any of the specs. Shows how important that is. But iPhone 10 is rocking the A11 Bionic chip and 3 gigs of RAM, and it's awesome. In fact, it's really, really good. I would say this is the most powerful mobile chipset in any smartphone right now. The benchmarks are insane. But this isn't for iOS, this is for all the things that run on top of iOS. The augmented reality apps, the image processing, the super slow motion video, all of that stuff. But iOS is still iOS, as you know. I mean, it obviously feels more modern because of all the swiping and the gestures now, but as far as functionality, it has all the same stuff and features you're used to, has all the same quirks you're used to. Like iOS's notification system is still a mess since they don't group apps together. This is still easily fixable, but there's plenty of other things I wish would be different about iOS too. But it's Apple, they're stubborn, you'll get used to it. And battery life on the iPhone 10 has turned out to be pretty great, close to the iPhone 8 Plus, I would say. Again, iPhone is a champ of standby time, and it always has been, so no problems there. And it handles the biggest iPhone display ever pretty well, thanks to it being an OLED. I haven't had any problems getting to the end of a single day with full use. And if you want to use that screen on time metric, it's usually around 6 hours. So the bottom line, and the question that I get the most often about this phone is, so what do you think? And if you made it this far in the video, you already know what I think, but in case you skipped to this part, this is my favorite iPhone ever by far. I really like it. Is it worth $1,000? Honestly, I don't think people spending the money on this phone will be disappointed. Now, that's not to say this thing is perfect. It clearly still also has its downsides. You know, the fact that it's all glass on the back, more breakable, that's a downside. The notch on the front for a lot of people, that's a downside. No headphone jack, still a downside. But those are all things that I think people who are buying this phone are already used to or were expecting. And for that reason, it's not a deal breaker in 2017. So I'm happy to be carrying this phone. So if you were thinking about going out and getting this phone, go ahead. I think you'll like it too. Until the next one, this has been MKBHD. Thank you for watching. Talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
Darkenan Poros. Blessings upon your family. Good health, long life. Remain vigilant.
The Naru have not forgotten us. Dionysaka.